Hello, everyone. I don't mean to ignore you. I'm trying something a little different here, and it might take me a few minutes to see if this is actually going to work. But I have to go live in order to check it out. Hello, as you come in. Thank you for letting me know I'm 5 by 5. We're going to have, hopefully, I'm going to interact with you on the chat today if I can get this working the way it's supposed to work. Let's see if I can get it to do this. Um, right now, it doesn't seem to be quite happening the way it's supposed to. So, again, just give me a couple of minutes here and let me see if I can get this actually up and running. Yeah, it looks like I just did. Okay. You might like this one. You know how I've had to, and I don't know why I never thought about doing this before. I was actually watching Monograph the other night and I thought, wait a minute, I could do something similar to that. Why am I coming up close to the screen and, getting all distorted and, you have to, have my face right in yours. And I thought, I ought to go ahead and put the chat on my laptop and have it right here next to me. For one thing, it's bigger. I can see it, which is a really nice thing. And second of all, I won't have to get up close to the camera. So what do you think of that? Is this a good idea? I think so. So we're going to try this and see how it works. I still have my glasses here. Let me make sure that, yeah, I'm still in with you. I'm going to pull it over just a little closer. I wasn't quite sure how to set this up, so hold on just a minute. All right, that gives me plenty of room still, and yet I can see. What do you know? Funny, I never thought about doing this before. All right, so hello. Today is the 31st of January, 2023, and I haven't really had an opportunity to actually engage with you on the chat, and it's still going to be hard because I can't talk and answer everybody. I'm just going to have to take the ones I just happen to see. Um, I want to caution you that I'm not omniscient. I may not have answers to everything. I certainly don't know everything, but it'll give us a chance to talk about it a little bit. Much better. Good. Alex Martinez, I appreciate that. Progress, yeah, kind of. Like I said, I don't know why I didn't think about doing this before. I can just imagine what it's like. Well, actually, I see some of the, replays because I check the replay afterwards after it's uploaded. And, it bothered me having me come in and get that close to the camera every time. Whoops, there we go. Lockhart, hi, how you doing there, Felicia? Nice to see you. Um, I imagine I've been stirring up a lot of people lately. I might open up another tab here and read. Oh, it depends on where we go today. Oh, thank you. You're always so kind to me, Felicia. I know, I'm a pariah and an anathema, and controversial and all that. But you're always so kind to put up with me, and I sure appreciate that. The way I look at it is, with the things I bring up and talk about, at least it makes people think. A lot of people might think I'm attacking them or whatever, but the only people I'm really interested in attacking are, of course, the politicians and the authoritarians. That's who I really want to attack. But when I get people that are, not just wanting to uh, have a discussion on those issues, but actually attack me or anybody else for what we tell them. I'm none of that to you, Felicia. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I can't see you here, but I'm going to look over here to see what the messages are. Okay. So anyway, I've stirred up a couple of hornets' nests in my lifetime, and a lot of people. And tonight's not going to be just a spiritual discussion. I'll answer some of those questions or address them if it comes up. But I do want to say that there are certain things in our belief systems that need to be addressed with reason and logic, not just blind faith, not just because somebody said so one way or the other. And so I have been, as I've often talked about, I have been very adamant about certain things that people need to be loyal to. And it's not institutions, it's not time honored propaganda or he said, she said type stuff. Even if it's handed down from otherwise what you would consider to be reputable sources. If it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense. And so, because of that, I've come out very strongly and will continue to do so. There are certain things that I won't budge on. And one of them, of course, as I've long talked about because it was the first attack on mankind, was this relationship between men and women. And even carrying that on to, as I've explained, I know this gets, um, certain, well, actually almost everybody upset, but I do believe that God is male and female, that he and she are there together. It's in the Word, as I've shown in the Tetragrammaton before. And I am adamant about Jesus having been married. He could not have been the Messiah if he was not. And I've had quite a bit. Again, I'm not saying this to attack like the Catholics or Protestants or Christians in general. Jews, as a matter of fact, I'll tell you, one of the reasons why they rejected Jesus because they couldn't find evidence that he was married. I mean, not in the extant texts that were brought out, like the Gospels and that kind of thing. They know that the Messiah has to be married. It's just a requirement. And so, that was one of the issues. Of course, that was all part of a political propaganda campaign that really started with Philo of Alexandria, and I've talked about that before, who was a Hellenized Jew who wanted to turn Judaism into a Hellenized religion, and Christianity was his method of doing that. He lived towards the later part of after Jesus. He became active right around 40, 50 AD, something like that. And if you don't know that, you can go back and look at some of my presentations and see. But he and Josephus and that crowd, and I throw Paul in that entire thing, were active in Hellenizing this messianic movement that Jesus was a part of. And yes, it's true that some Essenes apparently, according to some of the documents, and most of this comes from Josephus, did not get married, but I question that because this was, as I told you, this was a military camp in Qumran. The Essenes did not want their families to be known. They were trying to protect their identities because they were doing something dangerous. They were standing up against the Roman Empire. So I do believe that all of the men basically were married. If there were some that weren't, there may have been some other reasons for that, but I don't think it was a common thing because it would have been looked down upon. Okay, and as I've told the people on Twitter during this exchange that we've had, I've said that if Jesus wasn't married, that would have been one of the accusations that we would see in the New Testament, unless they wanted to hide it. Okay, and of course, there are no accusations like that. The Gospels talk about him being circumcised when he's 8 years old, for instance. Pretty important thing. But it doesn't talk about everything in his life. And as I've mentioned in these texts and tweets going back and forth, the Epistle of James doesn't even mention the virgin birth or the resurrection. Now, I of course don't believe in the traditional idea of the Christian virgin birth of Jesus. I don't think that there's any real substantial evidence for that. And I've explained that in numerous videos and interviews and those types of things, classes, things like that. And the resurrection, which is really kind of odd. Why doesn't James mention the resurrection? I'm not saying it didn't happen. Don't misunderstand me. What I'm saying is that when you see things like that omitted, the omission of something that every man would have done according to Genesis and the law, he would have been married. So why make a big issue of it? But anyway, during this Twitter campaign, boy, I got attacked big time. I mean, I really got attacked. But I'm not going to budge on it because I'm standing on very firm ground, and I've had other, I should say, experiences that confirm to me that it's the right thing, that it's true. um, and that's taking into account uh, the the legend that's grown up in Christendom about Jesus, and that I have some problems with. Again, as most of you know, the traditional idea of Jesus as Messiah, I do not accept, not in the sense that the traditional Christians do, or for that matter, what the Kabbalists think the Messiah is supposed to be like. Um, they were a little different than the rabbis generally. And of course, in the book of Enoch, the idea of a Messiah is kind of supernatural, but a lot of that is imagery. It's not actually what is manifest on the ground, so to speak. Anyway, so I went through a lot of this, and I'm taking a lot of time on it only because um, I anticipate there are going to be some questions about that, and I want you to know I'm prepared for it. But I'm not going to do dissertations on Twitter on this particular situation. I was, questioned, and questions I don't mind, but I'm not going to do a dissertation on Twitter. I gave them, go see my playlists on my YouTube channel. Then I gave them a little information. I think like 3 to 5 tweets each, something like that, going through a few explanations. But I'm not going to do a dissertation there, and I've said that before. I've done that with my Eisenman and Religion series. So, at any rate, I think you are correct. I appreciate that. Felicia, I don't know if you're talking to me or somebody else, but I appreciate it. So at any rate, that's really what I've been up to the last few days. And again, the reason why I am such a stickler on these topics about the man-woman relationship and the marriage of the Messiah, whether it was Jesus or in the traditional sense or not, are absolutely necessary, because to deny that is denying that you're sons and daughters of God, and it's denying that you're made in the image of God, and it's denying that women are special and important. As some people I've heard recently say, for a man, a woman's not supposed to be the focus of your life. She's supposed to be a complement to your life. And I agree with that wholeheartedly. As a matter of fact, my wife Carol used to say basically that same thing. If I had gotten down on my hands and knees and worshipped her all the time, I think, and she told me, that would be something that she would not think very highly of. Of course, I would never do that anyway, but she definitely was in that category of a woman that wants to be an inspiration, and when the time comes for and to help me, and when the time comes for it, be a distraction. But she didn't want to be a distraction all the time. She wanted me to be out there doing things, and so anyway, that's enough of that. I won't spend any more time on it. But those of you who may have been following my little Twitter encounters over that particular issue, if you go to my community tab above and click on that, I think I put not necessarily the tweets, but a couple of the tweets where I'd outlined some of my reasoning there, not a lot. And definitely on my Twitter line, you can see those if you want to go in there. And yeah, it ticks off a lot of people, Christians generally, but particularly traditional Catholics. They hold these early church fathers, and that's okay, Catholics. That's all right. You got to start somewhere. Hold these early Catholic leaders in high regard, but people will say, "Well, Roy, you're not as smart as they were. You weren't close there." Well, they weren't really close either. Certainly closer than we are, so I take it into consideration. But when their reasoning veers off the actual Torah requirements, I figure that they were up to something else. And my training and experience, what I've seen in the military, law enforcement, historical study, all that, has proven that to be the case. And so while I'll listen to some of those things and take them in and balance them, once it goes too far off Torah, which would have been, if Jesus was circumcised when he's 8 years old, obviously, if that's true, and I think it probably is, then there are other things that need to follow. And to say he was not married, in particular, is cognitive bias, okay, or blind belief in men who preach for doctrines the commandments of men, or preach as commandments the doctrines of men. I forget how that goes. So that's all I'll say. If you're interested in that exchange, again, I think there's one post on my community post above, maybe a couple. And then you can go to my Twitter account, and of course that's at Royston Potter on Twitter. And if you go to my timeline, you look on my tweets and replies, you'll see some of those exchanges. So that's all I'll say right now. Oh, that's great, Charmaine. Proud to have been married since 1989. And yes, and that's really the goal. Actually, is to meld with your spouse, your wife, or your husband to such an extent that you go through life and beyond together. That is the best thing. And my explanations on other forms of marriage that are allowable in the Old Testament, in the Torah in particular. That's the first five books, um, and in some of the information that we have about what Eden was like. Uh, then those are acceptable. But even with all that I know, the concept of two, a man and a woman going forth together through life and then being reunited later, even though I know that Jesus has been quoted as, well, there's no marriage, in the resurrection, and those who are deemed worthy for that world and the resurrection, neither marry nor give in marriage. But you really don't understand the context. I've covered it before. I'm not going to do it here right now, but that's not what he was addressing. Sadducees, who, if you recall, along with the Pharisees and the scribes, that group of people, he was saying they were vipers, serpents. In other words, he was identifying them as being their father, the liar, right? The liar and murderer from the beginning. He was identifying them somehow in conjunction with the fallen angels who will not have, they violated their first estate. They tried to steal this one, and they're not going to be married. And that's exactly true. And I think that had something to do with it, not just the fact that the Sadducees didn't believe in the resurrection, but it was also the fact that question to Jesus was actually insulting a story in the Maccabees about a mother and her seven sons. When her seven sons died, they were mocking that particular story. And again, without understanding the culture and the history and really looking through things and how they connect, people automatically assume, oh, well there are no males and females because Paul said, there's no male and no female in Christ and all that. Well, it means basically in the law, it didn't mean that there wouldn't be males and females, just meant they would be treated equally. Anyway, okay, off of that subject, I won't go any more on that. Reporting for school, Colonel Crazy Knock, 55, great. Um, Ralph Steiner, well, that's right, Ralph. The Sadducees really didn't care what he said. They were trying to trap him, is really what they were trying to do. And he, even if he had to dance around some issues, he did it in such a manner, at least according to the Gospels, if this is a correct record, um, he was able to basically stun them so they didn't know what to do. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so that's all I'm going to say with that. Where in the Bible does it say that? All over the place. And again, I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to do dissertations. That's not what I'm here for today, okay? You go to my religion series on my playlist above, or my Eisenman series, and I might cover a few of those issues. The problem is you read it in both the Old and the New Testaments. In the Old Testament about the prophecies about this king to come, and in the New Testament you read it too. But because you've been trained and propagandized in a Christianity that wanted to put down the concept that the fact that Jesus, as this person that you think about. Of course, you know me. I look at this Yeshua character differently than most Christians do. I look at it more like James does, the brother, not like the Catholics or the Protestants or even others who put him in a spiritualized, esoteric, ethereal plane. And they try to say that all of the statements about marriage are just about his marriage to the church, when really that's only mentioned in Revelation. There's a couple of other places about the bride of Christ and so on, but when you look in Revelation, it definitely is talking about Jerusalem. A lot of people forget that, the city. But be that as it may, even if there were allegories of the marriage to just the church in general, that does not preclude, it does not make it mutually exclusive that he was not married to an actual woman. That's illogical. It's unreasonable. There are a lot of parables in the New Testament, a lot of instructions in the Old Testament, where just because something was said doesn't mean that there wasn't an actual thing actually happening in reality. So they're not mutually exclusive, and that's one of the mistakes. That it's not a mistake actually for the people who set this whole thing up. The Roman Empire, the Rabbinic Judaism at the Council of Yavna, uh, and certainly later on with Talmudic Judaism and the early church fathers. They had an agenda of not making Jesus married, not admitting to it, and they would put that down because, frankly, it interfered with the agenda of the Roman Empire and their own concepts that they were trying to push for themselves. And I just won't go with that. Okay, I just won't go with it. Uh, like I said at the beginning of this, it's putting the relationship between men and women down, and it specifically targets women as being dirty, nasty, evil, those types of things. I just won't put up with it. Okay. Anyway, that's enough. Go look at the. Go ahead and look at the tweets on my Twitter account if you're interested. Okay, and if somebody asks me specifically on here, I might address it. Okay, let's look at a couple of these. Yeah, Abba is Aramaic, and in Hebrew, father is Ab or Av. The bait can be pronounced as a vav as well. Abbas is Aramaic, and it's basically it's more informal. It's daddy. It basically means daddy. Okay. All right, let's see. I've been filming and posting proof. Carmina. Oh, okay. On either side, it doesn't matter. I'm just happy that when I bring these things up, even if people don't agree with me, I don't expect them to, but I do expect them to at least do the study. So thank you, Charmania, number one. I've been filming and posting proof. I appreciate that. Whatever side you're on, because without it being talked about openly, it'll never get resolved. As a matter of fact, I was accused of being a heretic, not once, but twice, many times during this entire thing, but definitely over the last 3 or 4 days, 5 days, as I've been doing this banter on Twitter. I was actually called a heretic. And what I'm going to tell you, when somebody calls you a name like that, all that is a nebulous pejorative that they label to anybody that doesn't agree with them. That's really all it is. That's all heresy is. God never said that you must do this or must. What he said was, let us reason together. There's certain things you need to do, love God and love your fellow man, and all that entails. But to try to search out the truth is not heresy. And anybody that accuses you of that, it's just because they've lost the argument already. Okay, all right. All right, let's say hello from Texas, Jack Morris. How you doing, Jack? Abba, yeah, is Abba a soft rock band? Yeah, one of my favorites. Their music was great, 1970s band, as I recall. Wonderful, wonderful music. Okay, let's see here. Jerry Leopold, Roy, check out Gator 111, 1111. He put out a video called "The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly." Okay, I'll do that. The Wagner organization, the Russian contract company that is part of the Russian military, that's in quite a few places around the world, but principally in Ukraine. They put out an explanation of what they're all about and what Russia is really doing. It was very good. Jackson Hinkle put it out on his Twitter account. I'm surprised it was still up, and then I retweeted it. But when I looked at it, it's absolutely true. What they put on there, it's absolutely true. So I'll look at this one too. Okay, let's see what else we got going on here. Again, I won't be able to get it to everybody, but I'll do my best. Yeah, I think that's good, Crazy Knock 55. Whether you agree on doctrine isn't as important as that you be Christ like, that you love your fellow man, you love God. You're not going to have a perfect knowledge of God. That's not possible, especially right here. They don't want you to have that. God doesn't want you to have that. He wants to see what you're going to do without that absolute knowledge. Actually, it's to show you what you'll do without that absolute knowledge. Um, so yeah, and I agree. So if people want to believe, for instance, that Jesus was not married, why, if I say that I'm not going to get upset by a disagreement, is that one going to bother me? Again, it's because there's this attack on the male-female relationship. I can go along with discussing all the other aspects of the 613 commandments, the historical basis for the New Testament, all sorts of things. But when you get down to attacking that male-female relationship, that's one I can't budge on, because right now we're seeing the effects of that. By the way, that whole thing on Twitter started because I retweeted I think it was from Jack Posobiec. It was a group of Lima golf people, et cetera, that were demonstrating against I think it was at a place where they were trying to get a law passed where you can't, physically mutilate children, read between the lines. And so I tweeted out, well, this is partly a responsibility, partly cause, and I've said this before, partly a cause of the church, the Christian church teaching that Jesus wasn't married. Because what does that do? If you're supposed to follow Jesus, that he set the example, then why are you getting married, right? Why are you getting married? If Jesus really truly set the example of not being married, then why are you getting married? You're violating what he taught. Now, of course, I don't believe that's the case, but that's the point. And so it has adversely affected a lot of people over the years. People have made themselves single because they think that's what God wants, and it's not. Okay, and then because they yearn for a human connection, they start doing these things that really are unlawful. Okay, all right. Are you doomed? No. Legacy of catastrophe? No. See. That's the other thing. You're really getting me. See, you're pushing me into this, and I didn't want to go this far, but I understand your concern. No, you're not doomed. Uh, Remember, you were created as part of a duel, right? You were created with a. If you are legacy, I don't know if you're a man or a woman, but either way, you were created with a counterpart. All right. That's when Jesus says they marry in this world. The children of this world marry and are given in marriage, in that world they neither marry in the resurrection. They neither marry or given in marriage, but are as the angels in heaven. That takes in two groups. It takes in the fallen angels who do not get married. That's a violation of their mistake, of their state. And the second is if you're a begotten son or daughter of God, you have a soulmate. That's really what that is. You may not find them here. This is a place of testing. I mean, I lost Carol, right, and it's been horrible since then. That doesn't preclude me from finding somebody to be with, a partner. But the point is that you may run into your soulmate here, you may not, but you will. When all this is settled, you will have your counterpart. Okay, that's part of the promise of what all this is about. Okay, let's see what else we got. Yeah, I won't say that, Walter. That'd probably get me taken down, but you're absolutely right. Jesse from Brief Pure Earth watches here. By the way, Jesse, you've put up some great things going on about what's happening in this whole thing over in Europe and Ukraine and what Russia's up to. All that you really hit the nail on the head. I want to thank you for that. I've been tweeting out your tweets and your YouTube. Roy, I have a question. Who do you think the Democrats are bowing to? Pelosi and gang with the African rap? Could it be a new leader of the Pentagon? They were looking at someone or something. I've raised the same question, Jesse, and obviously somebody with a lot of power. And I talked about these trips that these people, these politicians, and these elites have been making to Antarctica. I don't know what's going on down there. I don't pretend to know. I know there's a lot of people that say that the fallen angels are running the earth from down there. I don't know, but it was somebody with a lot of power, and they consider that person, that entity, God. You don't kneel, or at least they're subservient to them, whoever it is. Are they in the Pentagon? I don't think we know who it is right now. I conjectured for a long time that it was actually possibly Trump. He was punching some of the tickets, but right now he's looking kind of almost, in some regards, in my estimation, he's almost looking as bad as Biden in some cases, as far as dementia. Almost. I don't know. No, he's not that bad, but at any rate, I don't know who it is, Jesse. All I know is that we know them by their fruits. So when they manifest, when you see them and you listen to them, you'll if you have the right spirit, you'll know who they are. And apparently, people like Pelosi and all those others that you mentioned have already thrown their hat into the ring to worship that person. And yeah, I think the African rap had something to do with it. It wasn't just the respect to the BLM. I think you're right. Okay. Reigns of healing. Now, see, there you go again. I'm going to say it only one time, okay? The bride of Christ allegory does not preclude, does not make it mutually exclusive that he didn't have a real wife. Okay? That's where you're making your mistake. All right? And I have some things prepared tonight to show you that, and I put it on my Twitter account where it says the Messiah has to be married. It's absolutely imperative. But you don't see it because you've been told to read it as an esoteric, spiritualized thing. The allegory reflects the physical manifestation. And your church has been very evil in telling you that that's not the case. Okay, I'm not going to say anything more about it right now. Yes, thank Jesse for doing his videos. He always gives a lot of good information. Sheila on reincarnation. I mean, what I'll tell you about this is it's evident in the scriptures, right? I mean, the scribes and Pharisees thought that John the Baptist was a reincarnated Elijah, and they were wondering if Jesus was the reincarnated John the Baptist. So that concept was there. No, I don't say it's impossible. I think I could send you back to this school in a new form, new physical body. I don't have a problem with that. Okay. I don't think that's ideal. I would hope that you learn your lesson here and that you obtain your resurrection, and then you can go to other schools elsewhere in that higher incorruptible state. That's what I look forward to if I can possibly make sure. Well, it's not going to be my job to do that, but I hope I get forgiven of some of the things that I've done that I'm very ashamed of. No, plural marriage wasn't something that I was ashamed of. And actually, it was quite amazing that it worked out as well as it did, considering all the persecutions we went through. But at any rate, but other things, military, some other stuff, personal things that I did I shouldn't have done, stuff like that. I've been reflecting on a lot of that lately. And if those things get taken care of, and if they are, well, then hopefully I'll be able to get a new suit and go on and do some other things. Okay, yeah, BP Earthwatch is always on the job. That's for sure. Jerry Leopold, I saw a video that says all Y names are deceiving us, that Jesus is the name we should call it. No. Don't get hung up on the English J and the Hebrew Y. Don't do that. That has nothing to do with anything. It doesn't make it wrong or anything else. It's just a difference in language. That's what that is that's in the scriptures. Jesus even says, he says, you strain at a gnat and you swallow a camel. Well, that argument over the Y and the J is a good example of that, straining at a gnat and swallowing a camel. Don't do it. It's a false argument. No, I'm not going to verify any findings, okay, right now. I'm not going to do that. Will there be a rapture? Not in the way the traditional Christians look at it. No. No. You have to go through this. And the scriptures are very clear on that. You're going to experience this, okay? That's just the way it is. That's my understanding of it. You might have a different understanding of it, but no, I don't think that the rapture is not in the way traditional Christians, especially the born agains, think of it. No. Not happening. Not in my estimation. Okay. Yeah, endure to the end, David Allen. That's right. Yeah, that's very good. Yochanan Bell. Yeah, John the Baptist's name was Yochanan, and I talk about that in my book, The Crimson Thread. Yeah, James' name, for instance, the Apostle James, the brother of Jesus, his name is Yaakov. Yeah, but when it's anglicized, there's nothing wrong with saying Jacob or James. That's not something to get all bent out of shape over. Okay, let's see here. Like I said, I want to take questions. That's really what I was so interested in doing today. So let's see how we're doing here. Cain was not the son of Adam. That's correct, Jesse. I must have missed a. Oh, I did see that where it says somebody did say Cain and Abel were the first two sons of Adam and Eve, and you're absolutely right. That's veiled there, just like God's wife is veiled. Um, we know that there's a queen of heaven, but we're not supposed to worship her. Now, the queen of heaven in the pagan religions, Ashtar, Isis, and those kinds of things, obviously not, but they were just other people's representations of the truth in some form. But there is a queen of heaven, but she's veiled, just like a bride when at least in the old days, and she's veiled when she comes out. She doesn't lift her veil up until she's with her husband for the crowd to see. God's wife is veiled. Okay, that's part of the deal here. But yeah, Cain was actually the seed of the serpent, and even though it says Adam knew his wife Eve and she bare a son, and then she called his name Cain because she got a man from the Lord. Yeah, and the word for Lord there used is the YHVH. It is. So she was still not quite there. She had been deceived pretty bad, and that's why uh, some things are said about her later. Not to lose respect for her, she was certainly more beautiful and more honorable than probably any woman alive today. But there were other things. Remember, all these things are allegories of what was happening. This was a very hard time, and it was basically so that Adam could be the first Christ. Really, is what it was. He forgave her, and he was willing to take her sins upon himself and fall with her. Look at it that way. There's some very important lessons from that. But yeah, that's right, Jesse. Cain was the way the seed of the serpent came into the world. Then they came back later, of course, after the flood, and they started it all over again. Okay, let's see here. Lilith was Adam's first wife. Hi, Rolf Steiner. You're always on here. Actually, and again, you can take this with a grain of salt if you want, but the early rabbis basically said that Adam had three wives, and I've talked about that before: Lilith, Sarah, and Phoebe. Okay, just so you know. Um, yeah, that's right. Yeah, thank you, BP Earthwatch. Yeah, Gates is out there. He's trying to inject his stuff into animals now, and they're going to talk about putting it in the spray in the air. They want to get everybody infected with this stuff. They do. What of Sumerian scripture being used or copied, changed by? Well, yeah, that's true. I don't deny that the writers of the Torah, even up to Ezra, used some Sumerian texts for content. Yeah, Abraham came out of Sumeria. Not everything the Sumerians had was wrong. Like you're told right now to rightly divide the word of God, because there are some errors in the Bible. There are some misunderstandings on a lot of levels. The Sumerians had some good stuff. Abraham brought the good stuff with him. The Epic of Gilgamesh, for instance, Gilgamesh was really a nasty dude. He was really a nasty dude. But the idea of the flood may have actually come from that. But that doesn't mean it didn't happen. It was just their rendition of it. So anyway, the use of the Sumerian background to build on the stories of the Torah, I don't find a problem with that. It's not plagiarism, but using it to tell a story in a special way. I've shown you how the Hebrew words or the Hebrew letters in the Hebrew words are actually meaningful in and of themselves. That should tell you that there's more going on. So I have a lot of respect for that biblical Hebrew. Yeah, I have gone over it before. Legacy of Catastrophe. Thank you so much. Yeah, yeah, she's the screech owl. You know quite a bit about this stuff. Who was it? I just saw it. I lost it. Um, yeah, Ralph Steiner. Yeah, she's also known as the screech owl. Yeah, exactly. All right, Babylon is on the way of falling. Remember, I told you, some of these nations see what's going on here, and whether they realize what they're doing or not, they're obeying the commandment to come out of Babylon and not partake of her plagues. Unfortunately, it's a real war. It's the war in heaven now projected upon the earth. Sheila Hand, of course. Men are supposed to protect their women, not downgrade them. I mean, Jesus even said it, right? He was at what started this whole conversation. It's in the same part of Matthew, Luke, and Mark, where they come to him and they say, "Well, Moses said we could divorce our wives," and Jesus said, "He gave that to you because of the hardness of your hearts." No, you can't divorce your wife save for the cause of fornication. Otherwise, you cause her to commit adultery. You commit adultery, and whoever marries her commits adultery. Well, now, wait a minute. See, there's something different here going on. Fornication is not adultery. Okay? So, what is this fornication that he was talking about? And I've addressed that before. I'm not going to do it here, but just suffice it to say that it was basically, and it can be adultery. Okay, adultery can be fornication, but it's not exactly the same thing. So basically, it's when the woman basically stands against her husband. I guess is probably the easiest way to put it. That they're not unified any longer. They become, in modern terms, it would be, I think the legal term is um, what is that? Anyway, you no longer have common ground. I forget the legal term for it now. But at any rate, but it was a serious situation. It had to be further. It had to be like worshiping foreign gods. That would be a form of fornication, and that was not good. Or that she became a prostitute. That was grounds for that's by the well. Anyway, those kinds of things. So all right. All right, let's see here. Any thoughts about some Hebrew Israelites who claim that salvation is only for Hebrews? Well, it even says in the Torah that God brings in. That's in the first 5 books of the Bible, and in the prophets, it's written there, and even in the writings of the Ketuvim, it talks about other nations being brought in. Um, for 2 reasons. One is that Israel was scattered. The seed is out there. I've talked about a lot of people being Shemites. That it's not just the people in this little country over here or affiliated with it. Shemites were a big family. They were all sons and daughters of Shem. So there are more than just even Abraham's seed that are Shemites. But at any rate, uh, and in the temple, both Solomon's temple and in the other temples as they came along. Um, this is all in my book, The Crimson Thread. The high priest, when he went in on Yom Kippur, would pray for the deliverance of the 70 nations of the world. Okay, so it's not just for the Hebrews. The Hebrews were supposed to. They look at it, the Jews anyway, look at themselves as the Messiah without metaphor. In other words, they say that the Jewish people are the Messiah. That's kind of narcissistic, and I know why they say that from the scriptures, but God put them into, according to their own writings, of course, God put them under a special covenant for his own purposes, but they're not the only ones that get saved. No, that's not true. Okay. Yeah. Well, that's uh, um, the ancient alien stuff. The Sumerian text, Enki, Enlil, Marduk, all that stuff. That's based on real events. It does again. It doesn't uh, forfeit. It doesn't Christianity. It doesn't make it false. Okay. You don't need to go down that far. It's just another way of looking at how this whole thing came about. For instance, and I know people will argue with me about, well, the Muslim God really isn't the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Yahweh, as compared to Allah. And I understand those differences, but basically around the world, people are just trying to approach this this divine in the best way they know how. Okay, so some of those differences in the terminology will be the reason for that. In the Torah, of course, when God reveals Himself, He says what His name is. He says what my name is. But you got to understand how the gods were projected onto the earth, onto the soil, onto the every nation had their own gods, and that's how it looked. Jesus in Psalms 82, God's talking. He says, "Ye are gods." You're in the council of the gods, and you're doing all these things to hurt people. Look what the leaders of our nations are doing. They are literally the gods of Psalms 82. It's all playing out here. And then Jesus said, "Have ye not heard that ye are gods? It is written, ye are gods." Right? So, yeah, a lot of that there. Akkad, yeah, the Akkadians. That's the also you're pretty well versed in a lot of things. That's pretty good. All right, Jesse says some of your Caucasians came from 10 of the tribes. They crossed over the yeah, and I believe that too, Jesse. I hurt people's feelings sometimes about what the early Israelites were, but there are scriptures that that describe them, and I'm just going to say that yeah, I would say that you're right there. Okay. Okay. All right. Let's see. Oh, just subdued. Is the mark of Cain what the Mormons claim it to be, or something else? If not, do you? Yeah, the mark. Yeah, I think that was going too far. I don't. The current Mormons don't do this. As a matter of fact, the current Mormons have gotten away from almost all the earlier things that they built their religion on. That's another story altogether. I don't want to get into it, but. Um, uh, no, it's not the color of the skin. That's not what it is. Uh, it's pretty plain. A mark is a mark, and it's actually the tav, and the tav is the mark, and uh, it can mean the cross. In other words, part of the plan of salvation, or it can be a curse. And so, in this case, again, remember. Um, God puts His law in your mind and in your heart, and in your mind, and you will know them by their fruits. So the mark is really what they hold to, what they espouse. The leaders of the nations right now are proving that they've got the wrong mark. Okay, so no, I don't believe that it's the skin color. No, I don't think so. That was that was an issue back in the 1800s for a lot of reasons, and it's too bad it went there. I'm not going to patronize anybody. I'll just say that there are good people in every race, religion, color, creed, ethnicity, social, economic. It's what they do that counts. Right? That's the issue. All right, let's see. Darling Peniel. Oh, Peniel. Peniel, the face of God. You know what that means, right? Darling Peniel. Peniel, face of God. Interesting. remember, I'm being asked how long will the boys and the girls, women, men, everybody be sacrificed in Ukraine. That shows you what the New World Order is all about. And I mentioned it the other night. They're emptying out Ukraine of the white Christians in particular, men, women, children, everybody. I don't want to get into that tonight. It would probably get us thrown off YouTube, but it does have something to do with this thing over here and their ties and the Anglo-American Alliance, the Balfour Declaration, a lot of things. Okay, Sparky's when family heads performed sacrifice. Melchizedek, I don't know who you're talking to, Sparky's when Melchizedek was the first high priest and king. Both. Jesus is the last. Jesus is not the last high. No, no, he's not. Remember what the scripture says. The scripture says that we are to be kings and priests as well. Melchizedek just means righteous king. Melchi is the basis for that is Melech, Melech rather, which is king, and Zedek, which means righteous. So it just means a righteous king. And if you Jessup, dude, yeah, of course I know about the raids on the polygamous Mormons in the 50s, and that was going on. If you know anything about me, you should know I know all that, right? But at any rate, so Melchizedek was very likely Shem. It was very likely Noah's son Shem, and he became the righteous king priest, righteous priest. Anu, yeah, Rolf Steiner, Anu, the sky god, and Key, the earth goddess, and their children. Yeah, and see that a lot. Again, what I'm saying there is that a lot of that's just nothing more than other cultures just trying to deal with the information that they've got. Right? Um, doesn't necessarily mean it's evil. Hell, the Israelites did a lot of evil stuff, you know. So and the Catholics, Catholic, I get amazed with the Catholics. You know, I don't know, they conveniently forget about the Inquisition. Easily they forget about the attack on Hypatia, the pagan in Alexandria who was in charge of the library. They forget about the drawing and quartering of the heretics and the burning of heretics. Oh, you know, and that's why when somebody, especially Catholics, accuse me of heresy, I get very upset because, even though I try not to show it, because what they're saying is it's okay to kill you because you won't agree with their religion. Well, unfortunately, you Catholics who believe that, you're following Talmudic Judaism where it says that they can kill Christians. Okay? You guys have been fooled. I'm sorry, I don't mean to attack your religion, but you accuse me of heresy and you're going to get slapped. Okay? You're going to get slapped. Unless you talk to God every day in person, he reveals himself to you and you have the quaking of the bones and the quivering and the emotions that are tied. I don't mean just good feelings. I mean the power is there, like Moses, you know, at the burning bush, you know, something really strong. Unless he comes to you and tells you, uh, you know, for you to accuse people of heresy, I'd be very careful of that. I'd be very careful. I don't take kindly to anybody doing that to me. I might call out an error, you know, the way I see it, because of my study over the years of Hebrew and different religious spiritual systems and the Torah and all that. I might call out an error when I see it. One of them was, if you remember, I don't know, a few weeks back, a couple months back, there was some information I talked about a guy who was saying that we are the fallen angels and that the man woman uh, uh, body forms are the enemy, and that the image used in Genesis 1 was a bad thing. And I put it up on the board and I said, see, you know, they don't. And I showed how Zelam was the word, is actually righteous judgment on the earth in this sphere. That's what we were supposed to take God's image of righteousness, righteous rule, righteous judge, because he gave us dominion over the earth. We're supposed to rule it righteously. That's what the image really meant. And I showed you that in the Hebrew when I did the Notaricon. Okay. Watchful and alert. Oh, is he here? Yeah, he's one of the guys that got me in trouble on this thing on Jesus being married. But that's okay, watchful and alert. I appreciate you coming to my defense. Okay. No, that's true, Jason. Yeah, faithful Muslims are said. Yeah, the people of the book. Yeah, that's true. Uh, However, there are some other things too in the Quran that maybe you're not aware of. But yeah, the Quran was actually based on. Well, I don't want to get any Muslims upset. All I'll say is there's some similarities to the Talmud in there. I might add. That's all I'll say about it. Okay, let's see here. Yeah, Ukrainian depopulation. Yeah, and they wanted to. It's kind of a dry run for the world. The neocons are running into a lot of trouble in this plan that they have, and that's really where this came from. It came from the neocons. Russia has a long history, as you know, and their Christian orthodoxy is it binds them together, even with all the troubles they had during the Bolshevik, communist, Stalinist eras, all that. They came out of that, but we caused that. It was the people in New York that funded the Bolshevik Revolution. So these poor people over here have been torn asunder by our leaders who have set all this stuff up. And here they did this thing in Ukraine again. I won't go into that, but yeah, the depopulation going on there. Of course, you know now. I hope you can go look at the redacted with Natalie and Clayton Morris. They did a program on it today, for instance, about the labs. I'll just put it that way, because the governments were denying that it was there, and then Newland kind of admitted it, but said it was something else, and then the Russians have brought out the information, and the world is seeing it now, and these guys over here are going to be they're going to be hunted down. I hope. I need a drink. Hold on a second. Dry it out here a little bit. Hey, this is working out pretty good with, so I don't have to approach the camera. It's working out pretty good. Uh, wow, you want me to get into the tattoo issue, Mandy Gainey? Let me just put it this way: I'd never get one. The tattoos that are referred to in the Torah are actually markings to worship the dead or a specific god. And that's really, I think, because you're not supposed to make anything, an image that you would worship. So I think I don't want to come down against all tattoos, because the real issue in Leviticus is putting a mark in your flesh to worship the dead or to worship another deity or whatever. So I'm not going to come down hard on people who have tattoos. I will not get one, and I'm not attracted to women that have tats from their head to their feet. One inconspicuous location, depending on what it is. But other than that, I'm I'm never going to do it, and I'm not going to be attracted to a woman who's got it. And I know a lot of guys feel the same way. Okay, let's see what we got here. How did I get all the way up here? Oh, Felicia even knows about watchful and alert. Cool, cool. All right. I haven't paid much attention to the moon lately. I'm afraid. I understand the core of the Earth is changing direction of spin. That might be interesting. I don't know how factual that is. I've just heard it kind of in passing. Um, oh yeah, no, the Russian army. It's like I said the other night. Um, Russia's in control of this. It's going. They have the ability to totally they have the initiative. They're in total control. They'll go when they're ready, when they think it'll be the most advantageous to them. I myself and like Colonel Douglas McGregor and some others thought that they would move right when the like they did last year when the ground was frozen. But they have some other political. I can see that they have some other political motives if they decide to wait. Uh, they're at a point now where they know they have to take out the whole regime in Ukraine. That was not their original intention, but they've been put in a position where they really are probably going to have to do that. So, uh, yeah, I'll just that's all I'll say about it. I don't really know, but the army when it finally moves, um, as Douglas McGregor and Scott Ritter and myself and others have said, Brian Berletic, etc., it's not going to be a blitzkrieg. That's not how the Russians operate. It'll be total destruction in their wake, and they'll take their time doing it. But it'll be massive. It'll be massive. All right, let's see what we got here. I'm not going to post any chats because I'd have to sign in, and I might screw up the live stream on my camera, so I won't do that. Okay, let's see if there's anything here. So yeah, they have the Russians are putting out. I think the number is like 40 tanks per month on their manufacturing lines. I think it's 40. I think it's 40 tanks per month. It's some huge number like that. All right. Yeah, I've heard that the moon has been tilting. I just haven't, Jesse. I haven't noticed it myself. I don't look up in the sky enough. I should know better because the signs of the times include things happening in the sky with the stars and the moon and the sun, and I'm very aware of that. The constellation Virgo, for instance, and the Jupiter coming through and all that we saw in 2017, and the eclipse X and all that. I know all that's important. I should be more on top of it, but I'm a little off topic there most of the time. Yeah, Mars Gold, you got a point there. Certain people received numerical tattoos in World War II for what purpose? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Uh, it used to be that if you worked for an intelligence agency or a police department, you weren't permitted to have tattoos that could identify you, especially if you were undercover. And there are all sorts of those reasons. The moon can move the oceans. Yeah, the magnetic poles are much easier to manipulate. Okay. Yeah, Jesse's knowledge. He's got all that stuff with the sun cameras. Watching the flares and the sunspots and the CMEs and how it affects the Earth. And Jesse's really the go-to guy. There are some others on YouTube too that do a really good job, but I like Jesse's style. Plus, we're kind of friends, so that makes a difference too. Oh, yeah, there are dues, directed energy weapons. Of course, there are. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, and we're not the only ones that have them. I'm sure Russia's got them too. And Russia doesn't have to use nukes. They can use their hypersonics, and they can use DEWs. We have what's called a rod of God, for instance. I'm sure you've heard about that. It's kind of a nasty thing. So there are weapons out there that could very well end up being used if these idiots over here keep pushing. Yeah, the U.S. Uh, you know, Ukraine even more than tanks, they would like to have long range missiles, jets. There's a problem with that. There's a problem with long range missiles too, but that's more of a likelihood. They want to carry the war into Russia, despite what people have said in NATO and in the United States, etc. Uh, they've said for many, many years they want to dismantle this country up here for no real reason. The hatred for Russia has to go. there are a number of reasons for it, but a lot of it's the Trotskyites who became the neocons because, Lenin and Stalin kicked Trotsky out of the country. That was just one thing. That was one example. The oligarchs, for instance, when Putin came in, the oligarchs, the United States and NATO basically caused the Soviet Union to fall apart economically, and so the Berlin Wall came down and all that. But then the Soviet Union was inundated with these guys who stole. A lot of them came from the United States or representatives of the United States and started stealing Russian resources, and they became the oligarchs. So these people here actually helped the oligarchs come about, and then when Putin came in and he started putting the oligarchs in their place for stealing from them, these people over here got upset. So there's that, and then historically there are problems too. That Russia, not that it ever did anything really bad to anybody, it's just that because of the resources and because I personally think because their orthodoxy, despite the fact that I'm not a fan of Orthodox Christianity of any form, the fact is that was considered an enemy by a lot of people, and the Russians are really wonderful people. I mean, just like any society, you can get the ruffians, but they're really wonderful people. They really are. Okay. Trotsky, yes, born son, the USA and neocons all seem to have roots around where this conflict is. Yeah, that's right. Rolf Steiner, again, you're right on the money. Yeah, that's exactly right. All right, let's see. I'm not going to get into Nibiru and all that. That again is going back to some Sumerian stuff. I'm not saying that it is. You're saying it's Pluto and Chiron. I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. I guess Medvedev threatens nuclear holocaust over Ukraine. Says World War III won't be fought with tanks, aircraft. Well, that's not exactly what he said. The Russians will not use first strike nuclear weapons. They just won't. Especially they don't want to use it in Ukraine because it's too close to Russia. They don't want a Chernobyl type thing. So Medvedev is actually talking about that if they notice that the West is locking and cocking their missiles, they will strike. So we better not be, initiating our missile systems. We're in a really dangerous spot right now. Oh yeah, Mars Gold. Of course, they're fighting the Most High. That's what these people are about. Oh, absolutely, that's what they're about, and that's why they hate Russia because Russia has repented. Russia has repented, and they've tried to pull out of Babylon, as the Book of Revelation says, come out of her so that you don't take part in the plagues. They're trying to do that. Now, China's following along. I'm a little worried about China, but we'll cover that bridge when we come to it. Okay. Weather weapons, yeah, absolutely. I mean, they were using weather weapons in Vietnam to flood the Ho Chi Minh Trail, causing rains that were out of season and things like that. Well, yeah, for sure. What you see in the sky, I won't talk that much about it. It could alert the AI here, but yeah, um, yeah, you can see it every day almost. And Bill Gates admits it. And I pointed out how stupid that is. They want to go to solar power and they want to block the sun at the same time. These guys, frankly, I think old Bill Gates is actually insane. Okay. Um, yeah, they try to separate us from God, and that's why I'm careful with the Bible. Anybody who or any, well, actually not just any religious text, spiritual text, but the Bible, you've got to be careful with it because anybody who thinks that it hasn't been manipulated for the sake of political gain, political intrigue, is really naive. Um, you just have to be careful with that. For instance, we hold a lot of respect for the book of Deuteronomy, right? The fifth book of the Torah. But mysteriously, and it's right in Kings, Josiah the king at that time of Israel, of Judah rather. Josiah is the king of Judah, and he was the son of Hezekiah, and the priest from a priest, I guess the high priest out of the temple, came up to Josiah and said, "Hey, my Lord, we just found this book sitting in some little spot in the temple here, and it's apparently the book of the law." And it was Deuteronomy. And then Josiah, if you want me to use the yeah sound, basically said, "Well, we're going to obey it." So what you're telling me is that they didn't have the fifth book of the Bible until Josiah. See some of the problems that are going on here? And David moving the tabernacle, specifically the Ark of the Covenant, from Shiloh to Jerusalem, and the whole concept that that was God's idea, I don't believe that for a second. That was a political move by David, and it was all made up. Yeah, that's how I look at that. Okay. You guys are talking about all kinds of things. Hi, Roy. Audrey Robinson. Hi, Audrey. Hi. You like my... Oh, by the way, these are blue screen block glasses. They're not really high magnification, but man, I've been looking at, especially my phone. I spend a lot of time on that when I'm out. I do most of my work on my phone, and man, I gotta admit that it's both at nighttime and in the day, and I just was starting to realize I was really hurting my eyes, my vision. I always had really good close-up vision. That deteriorated real fast over the last couple of years since I've been doing this, specifically on the phone, not so much on the computer. But I finally broke down and bought these, and they've helped, but maybe a little too late. I don't know. Yeah, they're blue blockers, Rains of Healing. That's right. When Crazy Luck says, Colonel, when do you think Israel will be split? I'm not looking at it being split. I'm not sure what you're talking about. They're looking at expansion, the greater Israel. I could talk about that, right? And I think, as I've kind of alluded to, I think this thing in Ukraine is part of that, frankly. Better not say that too loud, actually. Get myself in trouble. I have a laptop. It's right here. But let me explain why I use my phone on my live streams. My local internet connection is just not good enough for me to use my streaming software with my laptop. I did a lot of that when I was doing my nightcaps, when I was doing my interviews. Rich Higgins, for instance, when I interviewed him, the National Security Council guy that was fired by McMaster for alerting Trump about the coup. That guy. I had him on my show. I've had Felicia Lockhart on. I've interviewed a lot of people, but I don't know what they did to the connection here, but they really messed it up, and I can't depend on my streaming software and my laptop to work. Like when I'm here looking at this, it's jumping around right now, okay? Because I'm on the Wi-Fi here, the internet service, where my phone is on the phone internet service, and that'll have problems as you've seen in the past. But the Wi-Fi connection is even worse. So I have a laptop. I just can't. Like I'm reading as I said earlier when I started this tonight, I'm reading the chat on this, so I'm not putting my ugly mug up to right on the camera there. Michael Heiser is fading. Yes, he is, and he's a wonderful guy. There are two Christian. I'm going to call him a minister, but he's a scholar. Michael Heiser. There are three people I have a lot of respect for in the religious field. Michael Heiser on the Christian side. Pastor Chuck Baldwin, and on the Jewish side, Dr. Robert Eisman, Professor Robert Eisman. As most of you know, he was one of the world's authorities on the Dead Sea Scrolls. He was my mentor, my teacher. He gave a review of my book, The Crimson Thread. Um, and yeah, he's having a hard time too. They're all getting, of course, Dr. Michael Heiser had that bout with colon cancer, had it treated, but now it's come back and he's having a hard time, I know. So I love those guys. You know, we don't agree. I mean, Chuck Baldwin and I used to go head to head on a blog back when I was actually putting my book out. Um, I don't think he liked me too much, but at the same time, I still appreciated it. And Michael Heiser, I've never actually really communicated with him, but you know, I've watched his stuff. He's been great helping me to look at some things that I needed to look at, and of course Robert Eisenman on the on the Dead Sea Scrolls and historical things. Excellent. So those are my heroes right now. Okay. Yeah, that's true. Heiser does say about the so that it is a flat Earth book, but he looks at it. He doesn't say that the Earth is flat. I hope you understand that. Okay, he doesn't say the Earth is flat. Okay, but he does say that the Bible looks at it as if it's a flat thing. Yeah, that's right. Four pillars and all that. All right. Huh. Nobody's bringing up the laptop, not mine. You know, the one from the guys that live in D.C. and in Delaware, and you know that whole thing. The ties with China, the the classified documents that were apparently used by uh, the younger one with his father's knowledge, and was able to use that to do business deals and give information to his business partners that was actually, you know, classified information to make money and put our security at risk. And the FBI hid it. Still hasn't done anything with it. No, they're still going after grandma, who was invited in the Capitol on January 6th by the Capitol Police with no intent to do anything wrong. That's who they're still going after. And doctors who treat people who are sick there and stuff like that. We have an evil government, ladies and gentlemen. Um, there are friends of mine who ask me not to say that. Oh, the other guy's laptop. Yeah. Well, I'm talking about it now. Yeah. So, yeah, there's that. There's, you know, obviously these documents are, you know, that somebody's outing that family that's occupying the White House, right? They're outing them for some reason. I don't think we fully understand why. Some people say, well, it's just the Democrats; they don't want him to run again, and this is their way of getting rid of him. I think it's more sinister than that, and I think the deep state is doing a couple with their ties with the Chinese and with others. Um, I think what they're trying to do is deflect on some of the things that are going on. For instance, the information coming out now in hordes about, you know, people getting sick from the OWS and all that business, the athletes and all that stuff. I personally know some people that have gone away because of that, and gotten ill otherwise from it. Um, so they're trying to hide that because they want everybody to get the digital signatures, and they're not satisfied that enough of us have it yet, which is why Gates wants to start putting things in the food supply. They are no longer useful. Get ready for a dark power to rise. I think that's not going to happen too, Jesse. But who are you talking about? Are you answering somebody here that I missed? I'd sure like to know what you're talking about if you can answer me about that. Uh, Jesse, you said they are no longer useful. Get ready for a dark power to rise. I think we're at that point too, Jesse. I do. I honestly do. as I mentioned earlier, with this group bowing to something there in the Capitol with the African, I forget the name of that thing right now, but that represents a particular group. Oh yeah, of course. Wieners left. Oh, the FBI's hidden all that national security, which means that they're trying to hide crimes by the elites and by themselves, by the FBI too. Look at the RussiaGate thing. All that's been negated now. You don't hear any apologies or anybody in the FBI getting arrested. Quite the opposite, right? Dark Power's here already. Yeah, I was trying to find out from Jesse what he was answering there because I wasn't sure what he meant by they are no longer useful. I need to know if you're still on here, Jesse. What's no longer useful? I'd sure like to know what you're talking about. And obviously, you know that I think that there's a dark power here too. Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Okay. Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, yeah. So yeah, I agree with that. Biden was just a useful tool. Yes, yes, I agree. And he's outlived his usefulness now, and the dark power is and the dark power can be represented by Obama. I don't know. I don't. I think Obama's low on the totem pole, but you just never know. But certainly Obama, Susan Powers, that whole group that was around Obama, they're still running things. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Condoleezza Rice, even though she was under um, Bush and those guys, but still, that whole group, yeah. Okay, let's see. How long have we been going here now? An hour and 22 minutes. So I probably almost worn out my welcome here. I don't want to keep you from doing the other things that you need to do. Um, I'm surprised that nobody's asked me a little bit more information. Oh, and don't forget about all the food processing centers being destroyed. The latest in Connecticut, that big egg factory, 100,000 chickens died. Where's the FBI on that? This is an attack on our infrastructure. We've had power stations attacked. We had the January 5th bomber in D.C. Nothing on that, right? I've long said now, and it hurts my feelings because I had such great hopes for the principles that this nation was supposed to stand for. But unfortunately, I've realized that we are the evil empire. We are the most evil country, evil nation on the planet. And we've been that way for a long time, longer than I'd like to admit, which is why I regret, even though, I think God got me there to where I could rub elbows with these people as an army officer and in law enforcement and these other things so I could see it from the inside, but I'm also ashamed that I had anything to do with building this evil empire, even the slightest bit. Yeah, the border crisis, another problem. A lot of the saboteurs could be coming across with that. Yeah, they're not protecting us at all. We are one of the two witnesses. Terry Breckheisen, we are one of the two witnesses. I'm not sure I know what you mean by that. I'm definitely not one of the two witnesses. I know, no, 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 no. Do you mean the United States? From a national level, and I talked about this the other night, I do think that Russia could possibly, because I look at this thing at different levels. Some people thought it might be Elijah and Moses, or it would be people that represent Elijah and Moses with their spirit, their orientation of things, um, or it could go to the next level of nations. It could be Russia and maybe India. I don't know. At this point, I'm not sure, but Russia is certainly stepping up to the plate. You know, calling out the evil. Okay, the U.S. Yeah, nah, no, the U.S. isn't one of the two witnesses. No. Um, the idea of liberty, the perfect law of liberty, was slain. The head was cut off. Now we are run by evil people. I suppose I could see your point, but um, what do we do with the 3 days before it's risen again? That's long past. I think more Mystery Babylon. I think that fits us a lot better. Okay. Do you want to dance? I like dancing. I'm not very good at it, but I like it. Okay. Reigns of Healing says two witnesses are actual people. Oh, I just explained that. There are different levels of that. I'm not saying that they aren't, but it could very well be nations because in the latter days, Revelation is basically dealing with the nations of the earth and the churches, right? Not really individuals. So I'm not sure that that's really what it is. It'll be somebody or something with the 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 spirit of Elijah and the spirit of Moses. And Russia's kind of doing both of those now. I'm not sure who the other one is, but yeah. Yeah, I think Israel just made a real bad move with going after Iran. They showed that they're not with Russia, and Russia was actually a better ally to Israel than we are actually, as far as a lot of things. They get our free money, which I guess they thought was more important than having a good tie with Russia. Yeah. So that, but just like these people here shit on everybody. They pretend to be your friend and they stab you in the back. History of that, we could go back a long way, even with their own people, sell their own people down the tube. Yeah. I don't know about the seals. I usually don't get into the eschatological stuff too much, Davey Tutt. I'm like Dr. Michael Heiser on that. There are certain things that I think are important to recognize, but the seal thing, that's probably going too far down the rabbit hole. God even told Daniel, seal it up. Nobody's supposed to really know what it is. So I don't pretend to know that. Yeah, Reigns of Healing, Mars Gold, both you guys. Yeah, Elijah and Moses, the two guys that didn't die. They say that, Michael and the devil Satan were arguing over the bottom of Moses, but Moses probably didn't die. But I'm not saying they couldn't be that, but I think it was actually talking about somebody with the spiritual gifts of the same people. But it could be nations, it could be individuals. I'm not sure yet. Harley Jones wants to know what's the story on Jews who wear the box on the head. A lot of people misunderstand that. That's the tefillin rather, the phylacteries that are commanded in Leviticus and Deuteronomy, I think both, where there are certain commandments that are placed in that, and it's not really a black box, not in the same way of the cube that the Satanists talk about, or like the thing in Islam in Mecca. Uh, it's just basically a box that holds some commandments, and it's about writing the law of God on your mind and in your heart. You wear the one here. That's having the law of God represented in your forehead, the seal in the forehead, law of God in your mind, and then they put the other one on their arm, which is actually for the heart. All right. So it's the law of God in your heart and in your mind. That's really what that's about. No, that's not. Well, I'm not gonna address that one. Don't throw away the manifest reality of physicality in favor of ethereal spiritualism. Don't do that. That's not. This is Eden. This is going to be returned as Eden. This is our inheritance. Otherwise, there was no purpose for Jesus, if you believe in the resurrection, to be resurrected. Then why a cube, Roy? Why not? The Jews understood about the circle, the Alpha and Omega, the Aleph Tav. They knew that. How it could just be that it's easier to mount on mount than a circle. I don't know. I don't get wrapped around that. And frankly, don't forget that a lot of the symbols of God have been absconded, have been kidnapped by the evil side. You know, God put out the rainbow, his covenant, right? Well, we have a group of people that go against the man woman relationship that now use that as their symbol. Just as one example. The same thing as with a pentagram. Pentagram didn't actually originally belong to the devil originally. Don't forget, Satan takes what God does and then perverts it and twists it. So don't get hung up on stuff like that. Um, it's just not a good idea. What was that? Yeah, yeah. Roy danced with me. Like I said, I like dancing. I, I haven't been dancing in a while though. When was the last time I went? Gee, a few months back. Christy Anderson. Oh yeah, I'm glad you got here when we're doing the live chat. I seldom see you have a live chat. Peace and love. I am just doing the prep, pray, then stay out of the way. Yeah, that's all you can do. Um, yeah, at this point, test everybody. Test them before you latch onto them. Um, know them by their fruits. That's the key. Sometimes even that's hard. People will hide their true self, which, by the way, is a reason for divorce. Did you know that? It's a legitimate reason for divorce because that. Let me get back to that because I think that's important. Jesus said, "You can't divorce your wife, say for the cause of fornication, because you cause her to commit adultery if she hasn't committed fornication, and you commit adultery by putting her away unlawfully, and whoever marries her commits adultery because she's still technically your wife, right? So where does all that come from? Well, it kind of gets back to this. Let me get back to it here. Oh, I missed it. Rats. Anyway, it says in Leviticus, for instance, it gives the parameters of what those fornications are, and one of the fornications is that your wife lied to you and said that, okay, if you're going to marry one like Hosea married the prostitute, but they had talked about it. Apparently Hosea knew that she was a prostitute and she wasn't hiding the fact. uh, Priests aren't supposed to marry prostitutes, but God told Hosea to marry this woman. Gomer was her name. So she wasn't hiding anything. She wasn't pretending to be a undamaged goods, okay? She wasn't claiming to be a virgin and then Hosea finding out. If that had happened that way, according to Leviticus, if she had said, I've never been with a man, and then he finds out that she was, by whatever means he finds out, that would be a ground for fornication. Not, or that would be a fornication, um, not adultery because she wasn't married, right? But it's a ground for fornication. So, or if a woman says that she's from a particular lineage, this is hard to tell these days, but in those days, if they didn't have the tokens of their, not only of their virginity but and I went over that in a YouTube video some time ago, or their genealogy, like for instance, the Levitical priests can only marry Levites, and somebody claims to be a Levite, and then the Levitical priest finds out that she's not a Levite, that's a fornication. He can divorce her for that, okay? And then there are some other things. A refusal to do the duty of marriage is a fornication, all right? In other words, a woman holds back, doesn't give you sex, the man sex, and vice versa if the man refuses to give the woman. As a matter of fact, it actually is talking about the woman there. If a man takes a wife and he refuses to give her food, raiment, and the duty of marriage, that's grounds for her to divorce him. Okay, so anyway, there were a whole lot of other things going on there. I just wanted to throw that out. Watchman Alert, yeah, Roy, when are you going to throw a big spread at your house so everyone can be? Well, where are you, Watchman Alert? Are you in the Intermountain West here? I've toyed with that. I just don't know where. It wouldn't be at a house. I'd probably, I'm It would probably be a public building of some sort, or maybe, you know, a restaurant where they have an area where you can have parties. I'd probably do something like that. But I don't know if there are enough people to do that in this neck of the woods. I've never really looked. I don't even know if the information is available, but I've never looked on here on my stats to see where people might be from. I mean, usually I find out from them telling me, where they're from. I don't know. I think, you know, I've I've met in Wyoming. I met a guy at a McDonald's up there. Yeah, I was in a McDonald's. I was in Evanston one day. I was at my place there, and I went down to McDonald's. I don't really know why. And this guy recognized me in there, and he says, "Oh, are you Roy Potter?" And I said, "Yeah." So that happened there. It happened once to me in Pleasanton, California, in a Sweet Tomatoes restaurant. It's happened to me in a couple of different places in Utah where people recognize me, but I don't think I have a very large following, especially in Utah. you know, with my coming out against the Mormon Church and my little battles with them, I think people find that a little too much to handle if they're Mormon or if they're not. Um, hey, if I was Hugh Hefner or Howard Hughes, somebody who's got a lot of women hanging around. If I was a gigolo, a famous gigolo, or one of those, people would be hanging on to me all the time. I'd have women, wanting to have. I'm not saying they'd be good women, but I'd be a lot more popular. But because of my stand, and you see this on my Twitter thing about Jesus being married again. This marriage issue, this man woman issue, is the dividing issue of Christianity more so than almost anything else. Some people say, well, it's whether you accept Jesus or not. Well, that is the man woman thing. See how they've twisted that and made it all messed up. So more people get upset about the fact that I've had the relationships with women I have and have kids by them and honor them as such. Um, I wouldn't receive that kind of trouble in Mormondom or anywhere else for that matter if I just had a bunch of girlfriends on the side, having recreational sex. That's fine. I was even told that by the Murray Police Department. But because I have an honor what I consider, and I think I can prove it from the scriptures, an honorable system, or did have, that I don't think I'd have many followers in Utah. Is what I'm saying. Yeah, Isaiah 4:1, watchful and alert. Man, you know your stuff. Of course, you've been following me for a while. Yeah, of course. Isaiah 4:1. And in that day, 7 women shall take hold of one man and shall say, we will eat our own bread and wear our own apparel. Only let us be called by thy name to take away our reproach. Oh, we can't talk about that. I better not go any further. Yeah, I think I'll go a little further. I don't want to get into this subject about Jesus being married too deep tonight. I mean, if you really push me on it, really push me on it. I gave a scripture on my Twitter account, Watchful and Alert. You probably saw it. This guy, not Watchful and Alert, but this guy who was in his little group that were really costing me. Some of them were Catholics, by the way, one of which was called me that I was engaging in heresy. Like I said, heresy is a pejorative used against someone that doesn't agree with you. That's all it is. And also from a Catholic guy that I knew that I thought was at least friendly to me. And no, not now, no, because of this issue. Like I said, I could be an axe murderer and not have as much difficulty with these things. But at any rate, on this Twitter answer to this guy, he wanted me to give him specifics. Well, like I said, I'm not going to do a freaking dissertation on Twitter. Okay, you can go look at my religion series or my Eisenman series and get most of it. But I'll throw this one out here for you. Okay, you miss the concepts that the Messiah would be married both in the Old and New Testaments, because you don't understand the Israelite culture. And you try to spiritualize all the allegorical spiritualizations of marriage that are talked about are substituted and used to claim that Jesus wasn't married. But the fact that these allegories are used about Jesus' association, especially with men. In Isaiah, it talks about that the God's men will marry him. God's men, God's sons will marry him. I'm not going to get into that. It's a specific ritual that has to do with what I would call as calling an election. I'm not going to go there tonight, but it's a true thing. But the allegories of the bride of Christ and the church being the bride and all that, which are really kind of nebulous actually in the New Testament. Just because those allegories are used does not preclude the fact that Jesus was married, and I already explained that. It's not a mutually exclusive thing, but that's what it was turned into by the early church fathers and Christians to this day, which again I say has caused a lot of problems with some of these extant problems with understanding gender sexuality these days, where that's come from, and I think I could prove that. But I'll just throw this one out. This is the only one I'm going to give you, unless you really push me on it. Okay. Psalms 45, verse 9. Let's read it. Psalms 45, verse 9. Yeah, this is going to freak people out. If Jesus wasn't married, that would have been a reason for the Jews to accuse him of being a liar, and a reason for them to reject him. That alone would have done it. And why did he get circumcised? Merely because it was part of the Abrahamic covenant? Well, why was circumcision given to Abraham as part of the Abrahamic covenant? So that they would be recognized and mix their seed with the foreign nations. It had to do with sex. Sorry, if an Israelite man got circumcised and he went to a foreign nation, it would remind him that he's an Israelite not to do it. And if he did do it, whoever the woman was that he was doing it with would know that he's an Israelite, and that might, in other words, it was a delineator, okay? So circumcision is an indication that there is going to be sexual activity. Sorry, that's the way it is. Psalms 45, let's read this, and I'm going to go to verse 9. Actually, I'm going to read a little bit more. This is a messianic psalm. It's known as a messianic psalm. And this isn't the spiritualized church. Okay? And even if it were, it doesn't preclude the Messiah from being married. He would have had to have been married, and the circumcision proves that. So does Genesis 1:2, a lot of other things. But listen to this. For those of you who want to follow along. Starting at verse 6. Psalms 45, let's start at verse 6. Thy throne, O God, is forever and ever. The scepter of thy kingdom is the right scepter. Thou lovest righteousness and hatest wickedness. Therefore God, thy God, what? This is messianic. Therefore God, thy God. If you listen to Dr. Michael Heiser, he talks about the two Yahwehs, the one in heaven and the one that came to earth. And their reflections, mirror images of each other. Listen to this. Therefore God, thy God, hath anointed thee with the oil of gladness above thy fellows. All thy garments smell of myrrh. This sends chills up my spine because it's so beautiful. All thy garments smell of, brings me some emotional, you might see me, I might have a hard time reading this. All thy garments smell of myrrh and aloes and cassia, out of the ivory palaces whereby they have made thee glad. Verse 9. Kings' daughters were among thine honorable women. Upon thy right hand did stand the queen in gold of Ophir. Women, you're very special. You're veiled at your marriage to symbolize God protecting his wife. That queen there is the Messiah's wife. And because David's talking about God, thy God, right? He's talking about the Yahweh in heaven, God in heaven, who has a wife, and then his son, the other God, the other Yahweh, has his wife. It's right there, Psalms 45:9. Does that send shivers up your spine? Are you still here, Felicia? I hope nobody starts throwing rocks. Oh, so now we're back. We're on Las Vegas now. Okay. I thought priests used to marry, but the cat. Yeah, I know. Yeah, Reigns of Healing. There you go. Yeah, watchful and alert. The Gnostic Gospels, particularly the Gospel of Philip, talks about Jesus loving Mary and that she was his consort. Yeah. Now, again, there are some questions with the Gnostic scriptures, and I don't give them total uh, license, I guess I'd put, but it's an indication. Yeah. Now, somebody said here, yeah, the Gospel of Thomas also talks a little more about how close Jesus was to Mary. That's true. Both the Gospel of Philip and the Gospel of Thomas. Man, you know a lot of stuff, Watchful and Alert. The Wedding Supper of the Lamb. Yeah, it's a an allegory of God having his sons marry him, which is the church. Okay, that's true, but it doesn't preclude the fact that there's a real marriage too, that the Messiah takes a real wife. Okay, so remember I've talked about the circular thing and about type and shadow. So it has a spiritual aspect, but it also has a physical aspect. It has Abraham planted a tree halfway between Ai, which is the world, and Bethel, which is the house of God. Again, symbolizing this balance of the spiritual and the physical. So just because it's a spiritualized ethereal thing doesn't mean that it should preclude the actual physical action that occurred. Okay. By the way, there have been studies trying to show that the bride that is talked about in Revelation uh, isn't really the church. I don't know if you're aware of this. Scholars have looked at this, and it specifically states there in Revelation that it's referring to the city of Jerusalem, just so you know. The Christians latch onto these things and take it for granted that it's talking about their spiritualized Jesus and the spiritualized bride, and all that, and it really isn't. It's talking about Jerusalem, but that's another story. I won't go into it tonight. But I'm glad you all are aware of these things. At least that's important. Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Watchful. Again, yeah. There. Yeah. He went to India. He went to Britain. He went to France. Sailed along the Mediterranean. Humped over somehow. I don't know how they did it. Carried the ship over into the Red Sea and went over to India. Yeah, I don't know how they did that. Okay, let's see here. Yeah, I like that BP Earthwatch. Yeah, and this is the kind of thing I like about you, Jesse. The measurements of the new city appear to be a pyramid, not a cube. Yeah. Well, the pyramids, as I've often explained, in Egypt, were very likely Semitic in origin, not Egyptian. Um, the pyramid in Egyptian, the word pyramid, hang on here, the pyramid means wheaten cake. Means wheaten cake. It means bread. Bethlehem, Beit Lechem, means house of bread. Pyramid means house of bread. Okay. Yeah, yeah. The measurements of the new city appear to be a pyramid, not a cube. Jesse said that. And then I noticed this one here. Crazy Mike says, "All I know is we will find everything out when we get home from the Almighty Himself," and I agree with that. That's why we shouldn't really cause these dissensions and these contentions amongst each other on these on insignificant doctrinal issues. As I said, there are two great commandments: love the Lord thy God and love thy neighbor as thyself. And these two are all the law and the prophets. If you do those two, you're not going to go far from where you're supposed to be. So I agree with that. Um, that doesn't mean that we aren't supposed to seek knowledge here. Remember, knock, and you knock, and it shall be open to you. Seek, and ye shall find. You're not just supposed to go through life without even asking questions or whatever. That's why being accused of heresy is such a heinous act. Okay, by the people that and they burned people at the stake, quartered them, like I said, drowned them, cut out their entrails, cut off their genitals. I mean, they've done horrible things. You know. So I don't have a whole lot of respect for people that won't discuss, especially the issue of Jesus being married. I mean, that's a no go for me. I will not allow people to denigrate that relationship. I just won't. Okay. Okay. Wow, we've been going for how long now? I got to call. Oh man, we've almost been going for 2 hours. I hope you all have enjoyed tonight. Um, I wanted to do it this way so I could interact with you a little better, a little easier, and I think it was successful. I hope so. I'm considering getting a burner phone and doing a call-in show too. Okay, I am considering doing that. I'm not sure when it's going to be. Plus, my oldest son Jeremy, who's quite a biblical scholar in his own right, he was the one that put me on to Dr. Michael Heiser. Um, he wants to do a joint live stream with me on Psalms 82, and I would really like to do that. So if I get this burner phone, I might be able to do that as well. Okay, okay. Let me see what else we got here. Yeah, yeah, no dissension, just curiosity, and we're not going to agree on everything. I don't expect that. Again, the only reason why I'm so adamant on this thing with the marriage covenant is because it's central to what we are. It's central to everything that happened in Genesis 1 and 2. It's the image of God, as I've shown so many times. It's right in the Tetragrammaton. The very letters used to spell out Yahweh are male and female. And to say that Jesus wasn't going to follow that commandment, for this cause shall a man leave his father and his mother and cleave unto his wife, and the two shall be one flesh. It's a rejoining, a reconciliation of the opposites in the right way. Let's see, what's this? I like Jesse's statements. Let me see what he's saying here. Jesse says, man tried to copy God's design. They could not. That is why we see various styles of pyramids. Very good, Jesse. You're on top of it all the time. That could not replicate the perfect triangle. The base of the pyramids were longer than that. Very good. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, we always do things imperfectly, and then there are those who deliberately twist and pollute what God's given us. Looks like we're losing. Okay, so it's jumping now. I think we better go. Thanks for being here. Keep your eyes on the horizon, your ears to the ground. Situational awareness on high. Prep, pray, stay out of the way. Our government is not our friend. You can see how they hide their wrongdoing, their corruption, and they hide it all under the umbrella of national security. and yet they're criminals. They are criminals. They're supporting a criminal regime, the most corrupt government in Europe, in this war that's destroying the lives of men, women, and children so that they can empty out the land and continue with their corruption. You all take care. Thanks for being with me tonight. I hope this worked out. We'll do it again sometime out here.